Hey everyone, Alex here with Nerds at Odds, and today I'm going to be doing the Star Wars Episode 9 Rise of Skywalker 1 year later discussion. And I went into this thinking that I was going to do this video, that's why we watched the movie. And then while watching the movie, I felt so negative about it that I almost didn't do this video. But after arguing with myself, I decided that I made myself watch it, so I'm going to get a video out of it. So sorry if it's a downer, but that's what we're in for today. So, The Rise of Skywalker came out the second week of December 2019. It feels much longer ago than that, mostly because of what's been happening this year. So, I just wrote down some thoughts as the movie went on, and I think I'm just going to read them to you, and then elaborate on the ones that I think need some elaboration. So, before we get on into this video, remember, if you want to become part of the Nerds at Oz community, you get the videos a day early, the podcast 4 days early, ad-free. You are able to submit your questions, comments, and concerns, get access to our Discord, get access to stream archives on YouTube, a bunch of great perks, shout-outs at the end of each podcast. You can head on over to patreon.com/nerdsatodds. Now, let's hop on into this. So, the first thing, I think the crawl is super sloppy. It is poorly written. It does not fit with any of the other 8 crawls. Next, I don't like the title still. The Rise of Skywalker makes no sense. It still makes no sense. No Skywalker rises. Rey takes the name at the end. It is not given to her. She doesn't know Luke, and she doesn't really know Leia. The person she connected with the most is Han Solo, no matter how much they want to, lie about her connections with these other Leia or Luke. She doesn't really connect with them. They don't show us connecting with them. She connects with Solo. She could be Rey Solo, I suppose, more than she could be Rey Skywalker. So there's no real Skywalker that's rising in this movie. The title makes no sense. Next, let's not forget that the broadcast that the galaxy heard from Sidious was only available in Fortnite, which is insane to think about. I have never heard this broadcast that he put out, and I suspect a lot of people haven't who watched this movie, and they might not even know there is an actual broadcast somewhere to listen to. I haven't bothered to go listen to it, but I know that it was in Fortnite before the movie came out, and it's insane that it didn't put the broadcast in the movie at the beginning. The only positive that I've written out of this whole thing is that the opening with Kylo Ren wrecking shop is really great. Though you have no idea what he's doing, where he is, who he's fighting, any of this. You don't know any of that, so it's confusing what's happening, but it's cool to see. Why is it a Ray Finder and not a holocron? I have no clue. It just feels like the writers didn't know that Star Wars has holocrons that hold information instead of Ray Finders. Bringing Palpatine back is a huge mistake. It goes along with kind of the holocron point that I was making earlier, that if you knew the lore of Star Wars from the movies, you don't need to read the books, just if you know the lore from the movies, and they seem to at least know what happens in the movies, because there's the line that, the dark side of the Force is a gateway to powers that many consider unnatural, that line. I feel like they should have been able to understand that the idea here, if you're going to retcon Snoke's death, which I feel like we'll talk about in a video about Disney's trilogy, but this is just about Episode 9. If you're going to retcon Snoke's death, you could have done it in the Star Wars lore and make it new, fresh, cool, interesting, all of those things, if you had brought Darth Plagueis in and had it been like Darth Plagueis was Snoke. He knows how to reincarnate himself. He's the only one who knows how to use the midichlorians to create life. You could have been like, that was Plagueis, reincarnated, or Plagueis was in that guy's body, and now that Snoke's dead, Plagueis is somewhere else, and he's this huge bad guy that even Sidious couldn't handle, That's what we needed. Bringing Palpatine back opened up a lot of doors and a lot of plot holes that needed to be filled, and that's why you have, Rey being Palpatine's granddaughter, which is dumb. And if you've seen that interview of Daisy Ridley recently, they didn't know that was how they were going to make Rey related to somebody until they had finished, outlining the script for episode 9. That was like a last minute decision, and it's such a huge decision, and it's insane that it was last minute, but it makes no sense. And bringing Palpatine back is a huge mistake, and I feel like if they had just thought more about Star Wars lore, then Darth Plagueis would be the guy they bring back. Next, way too fast paced in this opening. What is going on? Why is it going on? How is things happening? Where is it happening? Who is in this scene? All of these questions rarely get answered in this movie ever. Next, who made the Final Order fleet? I hate everything about this Final Order idea and Palpatine and this Sith planet. I hate that, you're all the Sith, I'm all the Jedi. I hate the Sith acolytes. None of this makes sense. It's another one of those things where bringing Palpatine back required you to create so much extra stuff that destroys lore and is just dumb. But if you had just thought about bringing Plagueis in, you could have really fleshed out a lot of things better, I feel. Though, I feel like maybe I'm giving the writers and all that a lot of credit that they definitely do not deserve. Also, to misquote Han a little bit, that's not how Star Wars works. There's so many just things that happen in these movies, like the Holdo maneuver that happens in 8, or, what's it called, hyperspace skipping or something, the Millennium Falcon. That's dumb. How does this work? Why can TIE fighters now use light speed? It's not how Star Wars works, man. Again, I have another note. Who, what, when, where, and why. I really feel like this movie doesn't establish any of those often. I wish they would at least give us 2 or 3 of those in a scene, but really they only give us 1 at the minimum, and it's really frustrating. How is Anakin's lightsaber fixed? Who fixed this lightsaber? They don't give Rey her own lightsaber until the last shot, and I'm not sure how she made it. It's not it's made of material from her staff. She's not a Jedi. I'm not sure how she made this saber. It's confusing. But how is Anakin's saber fixed as well? Why is this the only lightsaber they care about in this movie? Luke didn't even use his green lightsaber last film. It makes no sense. Next, the scene that shows Rey training is not a scene of her learning how to be a Jedi. Also, Leia is not a Jedi even though she is training Rey. This scene is in here because fans were like, Rey is great at everything she does. She doesn't lose a fight. She doesn't get beat up like Luke. Here's your 2 scenarios, okay? Luke Skywalker goes and trains with Master Yoda, one of the 2 greatest Jedi of all time. He's been taught some by Obi-Wan Kenobi. Obi-Wan and Yoda, in my opinion, are the 2 greatest Jedi we see in the films, at least. Luke is trained by both of them. He's not fully trained. He's not a Jedi in Episode 5 when he goes and faces Vader, but he has been trained by both of them for almost 2 whole movies. Obi-Wan trains him in 4, Yoda trains him in 5. Luke's like, I've got some training, He's somewhere there, He's like a Padawan Knight level somewhere in there. He has some Jedi training, and he goes and fights Darth Vader in Episode 5, and Darth Vader whips him. He cuts off his arm. Luke loses his lightsaber. He's beat, half to death, and he has to just jump out of the Sky City, Bespin. He has to jump out of there and land on the Millennium Falcon and run away after being trained for almost 2 full movies by the greatest Jedi we see in the films. Right? Rey can somehow beat Kylo Ren every time she fights him, or at least fights him to a draw. In this movie, it's like a draw. Kylo's kind of beating her, but I feel like that's kind of just them being like, okay, look, she's kind of losing, but she doesn't lose that fight. She never loses a fight, even though she's never trained. Luke loses a fight and has been trained for almost 2 whole movies. They try to retcon some stuff, giving us some training, but Leia didn't complete her Jedi training with Luke. So that's kind of a problem with Episode 8, I understand. But it's just annoying that this is the best they could give us. You can see Rey getting angry and getting frustrated fighting this droid. That's not the way of the Jedi. They want you to believe she's a Jedi. But Rey is not training like a Jedi. Yoda would definitely not like her emotions when she's fighting this droid and getting frustrated with it. That's not how the Jedi work. Next up, is this the first time Rey, Poe, and Finn have been together for any like solid amount of time in the entire trilogy? That's not like this film's fault because they're all together in this film, but why are the three main characters never together before this? It's insane. Next, if they are, hold on, if they are secrets only the Sith knew, how does this guy know them? That's just a throwaway line. I think his name is Dominique Manahue or whatever. He's in Lost and he's in Lord of the Rings. He's a close friend of JJ, and he's like, oh, the dark secrets of the Sith and cloning, and that's how they brought him back. But if they're dark secrets of the Sith, how do you know them? You know? How do you know that's how they did it? There is nothing in this new trilogy that fans wanted to see. I feel bad for those people who watched Jedi in theaters in '83 and came out of it and were like, man, what happens to Luke next? What happens to Leia and Han and Chewie and R2 and all them? Like, this set of trilogies should have been for those people to have some closure, but yet they don't give them anything they wanted to see. You never see Luke, Han, and Leia hang out again. You don't see Luke get to be a Jedi, you know. Luke becomes a Jedi in the last couple scenes in Return of the Jedi. He's not a Jedi until he throws away his lightsaber and refuses to kill his father. That's when he finally becomes a Jedi. And you never see him, like, be a cool Jedi, and it's awful. I feel horrible for people who waited so long to see the original cast of characters do more, and this is what they got. I hate all of the Force Link stuff that they show in this film as well. I feel like it's just convenient plot writing. I don't understand how it works. Like, I don't think this fits in Star Wars. This is not Star Wars. Han Solo was the only OG character that felt like himself, though this is more Episode 7 got Han right, and they never followed up in 8 or 9, and it's a shame because 9 doesn't have any original characters to work with because Leia died. They're kind of just reusing footage. Han came back, which is insane that he comes back, but he's there for like a scene, and they killed off Luke in 8, so Episode 9 can't really do anything about that. It took 30 minutes before I understood why, who, what, when, where, or how. And the answers are just nonsense, honestly. It's when they get to that sand planet the festival's going on. I hate some of these answers they give. I don't understand some of them, but at least they're kind of answers to the who, what, when, why, and how questions. I hate the humor. I don't think the humor hits. Babu Freak is like the best character. I like him, though. I hate how little R2 is in this movie. R2's not in this sequel trilogy because they wanted to put BB-8 up front, but R2 is such a great character, and you guys kind of just wasted him. C-3PO is extra insufferable in these films, and, like, no one likes him, and I hate that scene where he's like, I'm taking one last look at my friends, but, like, these guys aren't your friends. They find you intolerable, and your friends are the ones that Disney has just ruined, you know, Leia, Han, and Luke. The ability to heal does not belong in Star Wars to me. I don't like that Baby Yoda can do it. I hate that Rey can do it. And unless you have trained for decades, then I feel like that's the only way you can justify it. If you've trained for decades, you spent the majority of your life trying to master the skill to heal people, then perhaps I would be okay with that. But neither Grogu, who is Baby Yoda, or Rey have trained in this for any amount of time. Now I just wrote, God, this movie is dumb. I feel like that could apply to most things. I sincerely question how much of this film would have happened if JJ got to plan out and direct all three. I feel like a lot of this film is course correction for what happened in 8. So I really wonder, would Palpatine show up in 9? I doubt that. When would have Luke died? And all of these things. So I'm very curious to see what would have happened. This movie hates... What did I even write here? This movie hates answering the what, why, how, and where questions, is what I wrote here. Who, you know who because you can see their faces, but all these other questions, this movie just hates telling you these things. D.O. is pointless, not saying anything about the new cast, but I do not want to see them in a Star Wars product again. There are not friends with C-3PO. This film has like 5 MacGuffins, which is a huge problem with it. You need the Wayfinder to find the dagger, to find the ship, to find the Wayfinder, to find the planet, to find Palpatine. You know, you just need it's a huge scavenger hunt, which is awful. How is the second Death Star even remotely intact? Which is just what? How? I have another positive here, actually. The idea of deserter stormtroopers is cool, but it is horribly underutilized or explained. Rey is too emotional to be a Jedi, and no one has tried to teach her any differently. Like, there could be an argument made that Jedi are supposed to be emotional, and I don't think Jedi are supposed to be emotionless. I think they're just supposed to be mindful of their emotions. You know, be mindful of your feelings and thoughts. And no one has tried to tell Rey that at all. They just let her, you know, have this rage and untamed emotional responses to things, and no one has been like, just, you know, try to be mindful of how you're feeling and don't let your feelings control you. And I think it's something that's not taught in this film. Leia's death scene is dumb. I don't know what footage they have, but I know they could have done better than that. They didn't have to kill her. They could have just left her alive at this point, you know. Just, she's in a couple scenes, and then it's not explained. She's not in the rest of the movie. I don't know. I think that would have been better than her death scene. Han showing up is by far the best part of this film. The Luke scene is nice, but it shows the flaws of the trilogy. The Luke scene where he's a ghost, and he like picks the X-Wing up, and he catches the lightsaber, you know, he shouldn't disrespect the Jedi's weapon. That's a great scene, and I feel like it shows kind of what Luke would have done in J.J. Abrams' Episode 8. As a person, he might have lifted the X-Wing up, and he might have flown himself, and he would have, you know, taught Rey more about how the Force works and what it means to be a Jedi, you know, and how you become one. And that's great and all, but it just shows you how mismanaged the trilogy was, because it's just people... Guys, see how I can explain this? I had a great analogy. It's like J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson and all the writers and everybody were sat down and told to draw a picture of something that doesn't exist. Okay, say you've never seen an X-Wing before, and they were told to draw a picture of an X-Wing, but it's a singular picture, and they had to pass it off every 30 minutes, and then at the end of an hour and a half, you have whatever this X-Wing is going to be. JJ took the blank canvas and drew an outline of an X-Wing, and it looked good. You could see where it's going, and you're like, okay, you put some color in here, you color in, you know, within the lines, and you have yourself a decent looking X-Wing, you know, and then he hands it off to the next person, and then Rian Johnson comes in and starts erasing lines and painting outside the lines and stuff, and then you have no clue what it's supposed to be anymore. The outline is completely ruined, and you can't see a vision going forward, and JJ has to take that, and, you know, the paint's dry, the lines have dried, he can't erase it, really, you know, he has to work with this and make an X-Wing, and he just, you know, you get it, and you're like, man, I guess I can see an X-Wing in this, but it's not a, you know, neatly looking X-Wing, and there's just so much paint splattered everywhere, and eraser marks, and messed up sections, and that's what this trilogy feels like. It feels like it was a nice outline, then the outline was ruined, and then, you know, they had to come in and try to salvage something, and I don't know if anyone could have done it. I don't know if they hired Dave Filoni to make 9 specifically with what 7 and 8 gave him. I don't know if he could have landed this ship, honestly, but it's just sad, and this movie doesn't really land the ship too well. I have another one. The Jedi ended with Luke. Luke is the last Jedi, and maybe that's what Episode 8 was telling you, but this movie wants you to think that Rey is now the last Jedi. The flashback training, I think it looks bad. Luke, the models they use for Luke and Leia are the ones from Episode 4, it looks like, when this would have been after Episode 6, and it's just weird. How does Leia know how to be a Force ghost? That is something that Qui-Gon focused on and learned how to do, but he himself couldn't become the ghostly human figure. He had just figured out how to reach out to people from beyond death. He couldn't become a Force ghost, truly. And he taught Yoda and he taught Obi-Wan how to do it. And those two make sense. And then Anakin Skywalker was made of the Force. The Force made him. So it makes sense that he could use that ability, right? And maybe Luke was taught on that island by Yoda or someone how to do it. I could see that. That was kind of iffy. But how is Leia able to do this? How? How? She's not a Jedi. She's not been trained. She gives up on her training. If you watch Clone Wars, or you read the comic books, in the comics, the Obi-Wan Anakin comic, Anakin wants to stop being a Jedi. And Obi-Wan's like, if he leaves the Jedi Order, I have to leave because I have to keep training this person. And he's not going to be a Jedi, right? But I have to keep training him. And it shows that Anakin's not going to be a Jedi if he leaves the Order. And in Clone Wars, Ahsoka leaves the Order. And then she's like, I am no Jedi. If you leave the Jedi Order, you are no longer a Jedi. Look at Count Dooku. He's no longer a Jedi. You have to keep with your training, and you can't abandon it. You know? So it makes no sense that Leia can be a Force ghost. And just who's manning this fleet at the end of this film? You know? There's a lot of things that are just like, you have to just not question it. And it's like, maybe, in my mind, it's the opposite of what the prequels are in a way. It looks fine. 7, 8, and 9. And I know we're just talking about 9, so I'm going to try to focus on that as much as I can. 9 looks fine. You turn your brain off, you watch it, it's whatever. But if you start asking questions, it ruins it. And I feel like maybe the prequels are the opposite of that. You know? Especially if you listen to someone who knows what they're talking about, like Dave Filoni. Listen to him talk about the Duels of Fate scene, the fight scene, Duel of the Fates, and what that means once you start asking questions about things. And once you start thinking about it, I think it helps the films out. When you start thinking about 9, it hurts it. And I've talked about the ending of this film a lot. It's dumb that they kill Palpatine off. It's like, oh, you know, he can't stop his lightning. He hasn't learned from those mistakes. And it just you put 2 lightsabers together, and it can fight back the lightning. It makes no sense. Directing Force lightning was a skill that Jedi had to learn. Mace had to learn how to do it. You know, it's just they don't care about the lore of Star Wars. You know, it just makes no sense to me. And the last part of the thing I want to talk about, I know it's getting long, and I don't want to harp on this too much, but the last scene, the way this film ends, Episode 6 ends with 1 Force user alive and the Empire destroyed. But Episode 6 ends cheerfully, and that Force user is going to go on, rebuild the Republic, rebuild the Jedi. Episode 9 ends with 1 Force user left alive and the Empire destroyed, but she's not a Jedi. You know, Rey's not a Jedi like Luke. She's not going to be able to rebuild the Order, so she's just going to go off and die, right? It ends exactly like 6 ends, but it ends worse. And I think that's a great way to end this discussion of Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, 1 year later. I know it's very pessimistic. I'm sorry. If you like this film, I'm glad, but it ruins 7, 8, and 9. I'm never going to watch this as a trilogy again, which is sad because 7 was one of my favorite Star Wars films before 8 and 9 came out. So I'm going to be releasing my Let's Rank the 11 live-action Star Wars films sometime this week as well, once I get around to recording that. Hopefully I can be more cheerful in that one when talking about the, good films. And so, thanks for watching. Remember, you can check us out on Patreon at patreon.com/nerdsatodds. We have a Twitch channel at Nerds at Odds, Twitter and Instagram at Nerds at Odds. And you can look for the Nerds at Odds podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. So thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.